Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today, we have a very special guest. And y'all already know, every now and again now, I butcher people's name, but we're going to go for it today. We're going to go for it. So, Brigham Blackham.
There you go, Brigham Blackham. You got it, Alex.
I was like, it's not going to be Blackham. It's going to be Blackham. I bet you. So, I was like, So, anyway, so how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Alex. Thank you so much for having me on the All in All. Man, what a pleasure to be here. I hope that today this conversation will be able to be something that people can look back to as a pivot point or a turning point for their story. So really grateful to be here. Really excited to add some value and pour some insight and ideas into your audience. So thank you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like I said, I thank you for being here as well. So can you give the people just a small background about yourself before we dive into the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out as a theater and a Mandarin Chinese teacher in high school. And after I started working really hard to grow my own business, I left that job behind so that I could focus and grow my short-term rental empire. I've got 9 right now, which is still kind of a baby empire, but looking to expand my speaking career and my entrepreneurship has been absolutely phenomenal to see what's possible when you surround yourself with the right community, you have the right mindset, skill set, and tool set. And the storytelling aspect of what I've been up to recently has been something that is shifting my mind. And I'm so excited to share different systems, different frameworks that have opened my eyes to what was possible. Because when I first got started, I felt like I had blinders on. I didn't realize how frustrating it was just waking up, going to work, and then feeling like I didn't have any impact outside of the 4 walls of my classroom. But being an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to provide services and provide products for people that actually can have a big impact on them long term. So I've been focusing in on the short-term rental game, which is Airbnb, if you guys have ever stayed in one of those. And it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed that. There's a lot of storytelling elements in that, but it is something that I'm really excited about and really grateful to be on this show to talk a little bit more. I've got my own podcast as well. It's called Leveling Up. And I've been doing that about a year, which is amazing. I started last October, got my first episode out in January. It took a while to get that first episode. And then from then on, then to now, it's been 97 episodes. Pretty crazy. A lot of hard work and a lot of great people that I've had on my podcast too. So I know the hard work that you put in, Alex. It is so much fun to coordinate, but when it comes together, man, there's such a connection that you build with people on your show. So once again, thank you for inviting me to be here. And I'm excited to be on the All in All. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Same here. Yeah. It's definitely for anybody out there that wants to start their own podcast. It's a lot of work, especially if you plan on doing this consistently, because that's why they say, oh, most podcasts don't last to episode 10. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of work that goes into it, and, honestly, I don't even know what episode I'm on, but I can tell you this. I have my podcast scheduled out all the way until January the 19th right now. So scheduled to release. So I have a lot of content that's just waiting to come out. It's already scheduled. I don't have to worry about going to upload it. And so I've been kind of just knocking them out. Like, for example, I know this is not part of the episode, but today I just finished the podcast before you. Then I have about 5 more after I finish yours, like back to back to back. So I'm
That's
just
awesome.
doing them. I'm doing a lot of them, and then I'll go and I'll edit them up. I'll chop out the shorts and the reels, and then I'll schedule them out however far out, whatever my next one is. You know what I mean? And just trying to keep it going, because if I stop, then I'm gonna regret it. So I'm like, hey, if I just go, then before you know it, because right now the way it's looking is by the time January gets here, I'll be 8 months ahead on content and episodes. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I do my minimum. So this is one of the things I've learned from my friend Rob Sperry. He said, show me your minimums and I will show you your future. And I took that to heart and I said, my podcast, I want to focus in on at least one a week. I can do that. I think anybody can have a conversation, record it, and make it impactful one time a week. I was like, I can do that. Yeah. But this year, I've almost every single week been able to get 2 or 3, which has been phenomenal. Sometimes it's hard to get that many. But when you fall to your minimum and you say, even on my worst day, I'm going to at least schedule a podcast. I'm going to do something to get it out there. It changes the way that you show up, because maybe this week was really tough, but you did get your podcast and you're like, you know what? I won this week and I hit my minimum. And then when you have a week where you get 2, 3, 4, 5 like you today, man, that's so exciting, because you're providing value, you're giving, and you're able to connect with people in such a great way. So the content that you create is huge. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that's kind of interesting, because I actually look at it the opposite way. I always go for the maximum, and I know, just thinking about like how algorithms work and things like that. Of course, you want to do no less than one a week. You know what I mean? Because if you're not doing anything every week, then you're just not doing anything. So I kind of look at it the reverse way. Is like, okay, what is the maximum that I can do? I'm going to shoot for that maximum every time. So if my maximum is 5 a week, I want to shoot for 5 a week. And if I get 4 a week done, I'm cool with that, because it's still not 0 every week. You know what I mean? So I kind of actually look at it the opposite. So,
yeah, I think that's exactly what you want to do. There is a blitz, which is like, hey, I'm going to go as hard as I can for as long as I can. That's that 5. Maybe your standard is 3, and then 1 is your minimum. My friend George Bryant talks about this. It's that wedge of expectation. Like, my expectation is barely minimum is 1. And then your 2, 3, 4 is your standard, whatever you say. And then maybe 10 is your blitz. You're like, I've never done 10 in a week. I'm going to put myself together and make it happen. That's something that sets your expectations. There is a really great inspiration for me as far as content creation. His name is Troy Dunn. He says content is king. Content is king. If you are willing to put out consistent content and let people know that you care enough about them to share, and then not like hide any of the secrets behind your business. You say, this is what I'm doing. This is how I've experienced. This is what my guests have experienced. You share them, all of the things that you're sharing, all the different ideas. And you say, well, if you want to implement that as well, then you can have my services to help you implement it. But you don't hide your content. Content is king. And I think that's one of the biggest values that I've heard from his class. I mean, he's got a great class called the Done Deal Formula, but it really comes down to, are you willing to open up your mind and open up your heart, get it out of your head on the mic or on paper or on a blog, so that people can interact with it and prove with their dollars whether or not that's something that's actually valuable. Content's king.
I agree. I feel the same way. So let's jump into it. What inspired you to transition from teaching Chinese and theater to becoming a success story strategist?
When I felt the very best in my life was when somebody had their eyes open and they were excited about what I was sharing with them as far as content. Seeing those students' eyes light up, I was like, man, I love that. But it was very restrictive in a public school setting. And being a theater teacher was phenomenal. I loved it as well. But the shift happened for me, and I think this can happen for a lot of people, when I realized I did not have to be tied to my desk to be able to make money. Profits are better than wages. This is something I learned from Jim Rohn. And when you think about and focus on the things that you can do to add value, to solve problems, you don't have a cap to your income. Looking at it as a teacher, I was able to say, this is where I'm at this year. And the next year, how much was inflation? Oh, about 2,000-3,000. Okay, that's about what my job stepped up every single year. And I could literally tell for 30 years, if I stayed in the profession, what my income potential was. And it scared me, because after 30 plus years, I wouldn't have grossed $1 million. Not netted, but grossed $1 million. And I thought about that vehicle, that it was great for the time that I was there. I'm very grateful for my time as a teacher, but it was not the right vehicle for me to make the positive impact that I want to in the world. I love helping my students, and I still love teaching Mandarin. I still love teaching theater, but it wasn't the vehicle that I knew I needed to be able to make a massive impact the way that I knew that I was put on this planet to do. So shifting into being an entrepreneur, and even a wantrepreneur. That's not a negative term. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a wantrepreneur.
I never heard that
You
before.
have that desire to get out there and to solve problems and to give value to people. So for me, I wanted to do that. I started out with that focus on short-term rentals. I said, if I could choose any vehicle, that's the one I'm going to choose now. And now I've got a handful of properties in Utah that are so much fun. If people are ever in the Manti area or Ephraim in central Utah, feel free to reach out. You'll have my link in the show description. But it is so helpful to say, this is where I'm at. This is the value I can create. I'm going to go and do that for as many people as I can in my niche. And then as I started doing that as an Airbnb host, I thought, what's next for me? What's the thing that will add more value? So I started this podcast. This podcast, Leveling Up, has been in the back of my mind for over 2 years. I did start one other podcast like at the beginning of 2 years, and it was like, what was it called? Why Do I Teach? Couldn't figure out how to do it very well. I did one episode and then it just failed. I was like, well, that was great. But at least I did something. And then last October, I said, I have things that I know people need to hear. And this is a digital stage that I can invite people that are farther along the path than me. That doesn't mean they're better than me, but they're farther along the path than me. And I can distill some of the experiences, the stories, and find those ways that I can improve my life and other people as well. And it's been so inspirational. I'm sure as a podcast host, you're one of the people that gets the most benefit from talking with your guests. Is that not true, Alex? Have you not been able to learn so much by who you interact with, how they share their story, and the things that make it meaningful? Is that your experience as well? I know that's mine.
Yes, for sure. I mean, almost every guest that I've had on, I'm like, man, why can't I have another 4 hours talking to them? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I'm learning so much, and I'm like, I need more of their time. But I'm like, I got another guest after this. And I'm like, it's so much to learn that you don't know, and it's like to be able to learn the knowledge that you do learn is I'm grateful for everybody that comes on because I learn something every time I have a new guest.
One of the other things that impressed me about the way that podcasting and the way that storytelling has impacted my life, not just right now, but as it will in the future, is the clearer you get on who you serve and how you can articulate their problem, the easier it is for your guests or your people that you serve to recognize that you know how to solve it. I learned that from Steve J. Larson. He's someone I had on my podcast this week earlier. And I think it's so impactful to be able to articulate the challenge that people have, the problem that they experience. And if you can encapsulate that into a story, that's what great marketing is. Good marketing says, here's a benefit that you would get from this product or service. Great marketing makes you feel something. It makes you go, ooh, can you say that out loud? I don't know if that's something that I would say out loud, but I do feel that. And it creates an evocative experience. It evokes emotion in a way that makes you feel drawn in. You're like, well, I want to know more. And then you can go into the sales funnel. If they don't raise their hand and say, I want to know more, you're not doing good marketing. So one of the things that I love doing is helping people tap into that story and demystify what the challenge is that they actually solve. And as you do that, you're able to communicate heart to heart with your customers. Because if you don't tap into the emotions, people buy on emotion, then they justify with logic. If you don't tap into the emotions, they might not have enough curiosity to click. If they don't have enough curiosity to click, the chances of them getting into that sales funnel, interacting with you offline, it's pretty slim because it's a very crowded market online. Some of the things that were working 6 months ago are no longer working. So as you are growing, content is king. That's something that I think from Alex Hormozy, all these different influencers, Gary Vee, all these people that are just producing like dozens of amazing pieces of content every single day. You can learn from them. If they haven't taken their foot off the gas this far along, why would we as younger entrepreneurs or people that are still growing, why would we take our foot off the gas? From the beginning of this year to today, I think I've done over 500 videos. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm excited. And because I want the world to know what's possible, I'm not going to stop. So I hope that answered your question, but that's part of this idea. Content is king. Storytelling is so important that if you don't have your story in order, people will start to say, oh, that's not me. I don't fit in that narrative. But as soon as you can articulate the problem clearly enough that they're like, oh, yeah, I do understand that. I've felt those things. I've been there before. As soon as you say I've been there, that's enough curiosity. You're going to say, oh, I wonder what else that solves. Would that apply to me?
So how do you define a success story, and what elements do you believe are crucial to crafting one?
How do I define a success story? Have you ever heard of this expression, Suckville to Awesome Town?
No, I've never heard that one.
Okay, so think about, this is the simplest way you can get into a story. Think about what are, for your customer, the things that is Suckville, the things that are awful, the pain points, the things that they're like, oh, I want to tear my hair out because I have this challenge or this problem, or I need this thing. If you can poke the bruise, that's how my friend Eric Counts says it. You get a bruise and you're like, hey, boo, yeah, that hurts there. Then they'll recognize they have that pain. They might have that pain, but they don't recognize, they're not aware of it. So you recognize what is the pain that they feel. You take them through an emotion of what would it be like to have that pain go away? What would it be like? And you have them imagine for a moment what solving that problem could do for them. And then you take it away. You heard of the takeaway before, right, Alex?
Yeah, I've heard that.
So you build up the pain, say, oh, this hurts so much. What if that was gone? You're like, well, too bad. And you give it back to them. If you don't do the takeaway, the story doesn't always land. As soon as you give that takeaway and say, well, if you want to know more, if you want to figure out how that could be possible for you, click the link below. And they have to figure out, oh, if I want to go to Awesome Town or Awesomeville, I want to have those experiences of the benefits, then I want to communicate with you. Now, when I say Awesomeville, that's going to be different for everyone. Some people are motivated by lifestyle. Some people are motivated by their community or the connections or the relationships. Some people are motivated by, this is the ABC system, whatever it is I need to do to know exactly how to get the results. Some people are motivated by having admiration or validation in their life to know, oh, I made the right choice. Other people notice that I'm in the right area or the right neighborhood, or I was able to, get my parents or whoever it is that I really appreciate to notice, hey, I did a good job. Or some people are motivated by proof. That framework I call the drive sales system. I learned it from Woody Woodward, and I'm an affiliate with his group, but I absolutely love it because if you can identify those 5 different elements and how to interact those benefits with the customer, they'll be able to see farther on how they can use your product. Because if they can't see how they'll use their product, how your product will benefit them, and it like hits their heartstrings, then they're not going to interact with you. They're not going to build that curiosity enough to say, oh, I want that type of lifestyle. Or, oh, man, that sounds like your relationships are so impactful. I want to understand how that will impact my relationships. Or it sounds like, oh, man, your system is so dialed in. All I need to do is plug in and I'll get these results. Or you think about, wow, being around that group, it makes me feel so good. Or maybe this one, there is so much proof about what you do that it's inevitable that you'll get those types of results. You want people to see, feel, hear, heard, and you tap into their passions by doing that. So to summarize what you asked me with storytelling, take them from Suckville to Awesome Town, and on that journey, do a little takeaway so that they know if you want to get to Awesomeville, this is where you need to click so we can start that customer journey. Because all relationships are built on conversations, and all wealth is created through conversation. If you don't take your videos or you don't take your podcast and create a conversation, why are we doing them? So there you go.
I agree. Yep. Conversation is key. Yep. So let's do this. So how do you?
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I was just thinking,
Uh,
I've got this story. If you don't like, hey, I don't have a specific question geared up. I've got a story for you. It just popped into
oh
my
yeah,
head.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, I was a missionary for my church when in 2008, 2010. This is a story of how I overcame some adversity, and this is almost like a parable to what's possible if you are consistently and actively looking to level up your life. You ready for the story?
Let's do it.
Okay. My first area in Taiwan, I was in a place called Ufeng, which is the Misty Mountains, literally, if you translate it. But they had this pineapple field mountain that was absolutely gorgeous. One of the first times I rode there on my bike, my companion and I, we took our bishop with us and some other church leaders. And the thing is with this mountainside, it was a little treacherous. There was a lot of switchbacks. It was extremely hard. I don't know if you've ever been to Taiwan or an area like that, but the humidity is nuts. It feels like you're sweating out of every single pore. And like you get out of the shower and you're like, well, I tried to dry off, but I'm still not dry. So extremely hot. And as you're pedaling, you're barely feeling like you're making any progress. Sometimes because you're doing these switchbacks, you go downhill for a time and then you climb up and you go downhill for a time. And it feels like you're not making a whole lot of progress. It takes sometimes 2 hours, 2+ hours to get to the very top of this mountain. You have to pedal. You have to go as hard as you can because sometimes it's extremely steep. I remember my first time doing it, there were times where I felt like I had to get off my bike and rest for a moment and then get back on. But getting back on, I was like, man, it was easier if I just kept pedaling slowly. Eventually, I got to the top of this mountain. My bishop, he was one, we've done this multiple times, but one of those times he had gotten a flat tire halfway up. He's like, well, I gotta hike this all the way to the top, because what's interesting about this mountain was at the very top of the mountain, there's like a road that is probably 3 to 4 lanes wide, asphalt, beautifully paved. It was easy for someone to drive up to the top and pick him up. So it's easy for him to do that than to walk to the bottom. And what I realized was the road to success is just like that pineapple mountain. It is extremely treacherous. It's difficult. Sometimes you have to carry your bike over the little streams. You get off your bike, it feels like you stopped your progress entirely. You get to the top of that mountain, you see that vista, you smell the pineapples, and you're like, wow, this was so worth it. But at the top of that mountain, there is a road that if you choose, takes 2 to 3 minutes to get down to the bottom. It's exhilarating, it's fun. But that is just like life. That is just like your road to success. Your road down, it's really easy to just fail. It's really easy to say, this isn't worth it. This work that I'm putting in, I can't see the benefits, so I'm just going to go down. It's really hard to get to the top of that mountain, but it is so easy to take you all the way to the bottom. So that's my experience, and that's my visualization with success. It's okay, whatever your mountain looks like. Maybe it's not pineapple fields. Maybe your mountain is your business. Maybe your mountain is health. Maybe your mountain is your vitality, and you just need a recharge of your energy. Maybe your mountain is your relationships. Whatever that is that you're working on, your personal life, your community, those mountains are worthwhile, and you just need to keep pedaling. You just need to keep focused on progress. That's why I have this Leveling Up podcast. It's about 不进则退. If you're not progressing, you're digressing. It's one of my favorite expressions in Mandarin. And that is the key to success for me, is figure out what mountain you want and stay on the path, and you can do it.
Yep. That's why I always say slow progress is better than no progress.
Amen, brother.
A turtle will eventually get where they want to go. You know what I mean? So, so for sure, I definitely like that story. So is there a success story that comes to your mind first when you think of the clients who you significantly help improve their leadership through storytelling?
I'm currently working with one. I'll tell a client that I'm currently working with. So teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling. So it's called TPRS Books. They are a language community, basically, with teaching how to speak Spanish and different languages, and they sell books and stuff. I'm currently in a consulting gig with them where it looks like when we first started, they were just really muddled on what their problem was that they solved. Now, one of the values we were able to work on last couple months was getting clarity on their 3 different pillars. What is the service that they do as a student, teaching students? What is the services they do as teaching teachers? And what are the products that they sell as far as their books? And asking the right questions was the thing that unlocked that for them. Sometimes your success story, you have to tell it in the middle. We're not done with that. I'm still working with them for probably the next couple of years. But the fact that we were able to gain clarity on what is the actual problem we want to solve. They want to absolutely understand who they serve first, and then they opt in. Am I a student? Am I a teacher? Or am I buying books? That amount of clarity was extremely valuable for them. And now they'll be able to organize themselves and their website a little bit more clear. Because before it was just you come to one website and you're like, I don't know what I want. Now we've got an option where they can choose which way. And that clarity provides a lot less friction for someone coming in to buy from them. So you think about this. In the Matrix, you have red pill, blue pill, right? You've heard this idea. If for some reason you say, well, you want red pill, blue pill, purple pill, green pill, we'd like the pink pill, or we can do the blue pill. Oh, wait, no, this is the light blue, then white. And you start to confuse your people. They'll be like, I'll just pass. I don't want it. There was a study done about jelly beans. Have you ever heard this study on a beach? Jelly beans on a beach.
I don't think so.
Okay, so this is the summary of it. Basically, they were giving out jelly beans on a beach. They came out with a tray that had about 50 different colors of jelly beans, and they would ask people, do you want a jelly bean? And then they would time how long it took them to choose which jelly bean they wanted. Sometimes it took them 10, 15, 20 seconds on that tray of 50 plus choices. And they would stop it as soon as somebody chose the jelly bean. And then they did the exact same thing, same beach, but they took all the options except for 2 away. It was like a red jelly bean and a blue jelly bean. And they'd say, hey, would you like a jelly bean? Time. And they're like, sure, take it. It was half a second. They didn't have to think. And if you do that type of simplicity with your marketing, you do that amount of simplicity with the choices you have your customers make, you take a lot of the friction out. A confused customer doesn't buy. A confused person says, let me think about it. Usually what that means is you spoke too much. You didn't ask enough questions. In the sales process, if they're confused, they will not buy because that emotion pops up and they're like, that's like a sales wall. But if you can keep it simple, do you want this or not? Yes, I would. They will start to interact with you in a more efficient way. But if it's too many choices, they won't. Hope that at least summarized what a good story could be.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, that's pretty interesting. But when you think about it, going down to 2 options. I mean, as soon as they see the jelly beans, they see, okay, it's just 2 choices. It instantly clicks like, okay, which one do I like the most? Blue is probably blueberry, red is probably cherry. I feel like cherry. You know what I mean?
Done. Yeah.
Or whatever it is. So yeah, I like that though. But I definitely know what you mean as far as simplifying it for the end user, for the customer, because if you're just all over the place, it's like, yeah, and if they got to think about it, they're gonna say no. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you wait too long, there's an emotional point where they like your product or service, they like you, and they like the company. If at any point all of those are over like 7 to, like if it's on a scale of 10 to 1, right? And all of them are over 7, you should ask for the sale. But if at some point all of them are below 6 or one of them is below 6, right? So your company, they're like, I really don't like the company. Then you're not going to make a sale. Or they're like, I really don't like the product. I like you. I like the company. I don't like the product. I'm not going to make a sale. Or they like the product. They like the company. They don't like you. They're going to go find another salesman to buy it from. That is what a great sales relationship is you build that know, like, and trust factor. And it's not just for you. You need it for you, but you also need it for your company, the trustworthiness of that company. You also need it for the product or service. And as you do that, you typically will hear the right stories. You share the right stories. Facts tell, stories sell. Have you ever heard that before, Alex? Facts tell, stories sell. And whether that story is, hey, I bought this product, I really enjoyed it. It was that simple of a story, that type of testimonial. That's a story that people will respond to. So I've got a little over 500 reviews on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. And every single one of those reviews is a story. A good review, a lot of times they will just say, man, I enjoyed the area. This was something that I really enjoyed. They over-delivered on these amenities or on this experience. And if you get a bad review, that is something you need to say thank you to your prospect or to your guests, because they are helping you improve your systems. They're helping you understand the customer experience. So anytime I get a negative review, I actually categorize it in a spreadsheet, because that's my learning manual. That's the things that I need to learn from and figure out, how do I make that issue not happen again? Or what do I need to shift in my system to make sure that doesn't happen again? Because success stories, you can have 100 success stories and one awful, horrible story, and your reputation can get diminished. So as far as your success stories, be okay with saying, this is the very best that we've done. Here's the 95 or the 99% that we give. And this one or two learning opportunities, those failures, here's what we've done to improve the system. That is something your customer wants to know. If you only have 5-star reviews online, my guess is you haven't been online very long, right? It's how you respond to those 5-star reviews and how you respond to those 1-star reviews that matter. People want to know, well, if I give them the very best story, say, hey, this was what I did, this is what I was expecting, great. Got 500 plus reviews that are 5-star, great. But those few that are negative, do you respond to them, or you just let it be? Are you reacting in a negative way, saying, oh, I can't believe you had a bad time doing this, it was actually fine? That's not how people want to be responded to when they have a negative experience. So say, thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. I'm so sorry that X, Y, or Z, specific to whatever their review was. So sorry that this was a bad experience for you. Please let us make it up to you. Happy to connect again. Something of that nature. Those types of respectful, honorable, fact-driven responses, that can shift a negative experience into a positive experience. So that is one of the ways in my short-term rental business that I notice success stories, notice testimonials, and I do my best to keep those clients happy. A happy client, they'll come back, they'll rebook. But if they have a horrible experience, even though they gave you a great review, if they didn't have an amazing experience, they might not come back. But you make them have that 5-star experience, that white gloves type of service, and you let them feel seen and heard and felt, man, they want to come back and connect. So I over-delivered on that, Alex. There you go.
No, that's fine. So what are some common mistakes that you see leaders make when trying to tell their stories?
Common mistakes is focusing on the facts and the figures too fast. Also focusing wholeheartedly on yourself. Here's a simple way to avoid that type of thing. All that anyone really needs to know about you is how you have served the people that you serve. What are the results of those people? So for instance, if you came and you saw my short-term rental portfolio, you're like, wow, he's got over 500 5-star reviews. That's all you really need to know about me, whether or not I do a good job as a short-term rental host. I could talk the talk, but if I don't walk the walk, you don't have the reviews, then it's not the same thing. I've been a super host for almost 5 years straight. So when you look at any business, at any service, and you say they are doing the work, they are who they say they are, and they do what they say they'll do, that builds likability, trustability, and credibility. And the more consistently they do that, the longer they're in business with that likability, credibility, and credibility, and what did I say? Dependability, whatever. The longer they're in business, the easier it is for them to build that repeat client. Did that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I did. So what? Hold on, I said the wrong one. What can you? Oh, here it is. Can you discuss the importance of authenticity in leadership storytelling?
Is it all right if instead of authenticity, I focus on being genuine? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because for some reason, when I hear the word authentic, you're like, oh, I'm just being authentic. A lot of times that gives people merit to be rude. I like the word genuine because, like, if you hear genuine leather, you're like, oh yeah, there's quality there. When you're being genuine, that's tapping into who you are and not being apologetic for your beliefs, for why you serve people, and how you show up. So repeat the question one more time for me. So being genuine in leadership, is that right?
Yeah. So can you discuss the importance of being genuine in leadership storytelling?
Yes. Okay. So when you are being genuine, it comes down to, before you try and tell somebody what to do, have you asked them, what are you trying to do? What are you attempting? If you haven't figured out what they want to do, you're just trying to sell them something. Or if you haven't figured out what their intention is and what they're passionate about, and haven't asked enough questions to help them understand or help you understand what they want to do, then a lot of times you're giving unwarranted or unwanted advice. So you think about like a leader that they have the title. You're like, man, I'm the general manager, or I'm the assistant to the general manager. And they come up and they say, well, you need to listen to me and you need to do it this way. But they haven't figured out, well, what's working? What are some of the things that you've already attempted? Do you have an idea of how to fix this already? What are you working on right now? A lot of times things can be solved with the right questions way more than any statement. Leadership is much more about curiosity and empowering and saying, hey, I'm here if you need me. I'm raising my hand. You can come back to me and ask any question you want, but I'm not here to solve your problems for you. A good leader creates other leaders. They create the opportunity to think. They create opportunities and roles for people to fill. If you are not the most effective leader, you are filling those roles for other people. And eventually you'll get thinned out and you're actively scaling chaos. If you can clearly articulate, this is your role, and before you come to me, I like this one. Ask three, then me. Have you ever heard that term before, Alex? Ask three, then me.
I've heard that.
The principle here is, before you come to a leader and say, hey, here's the challenge or the problem I have, you go either do some research or you ask three other people that could potentially know that answer. Come up with your own idea of how to solve it and then say, this is what I am working on. Here's the solution that I think would work. Does this make sense? Now, when you're talking about storytelling in this aspect, a lot of times people get in their head about what their leader wants them to do, or they do things according to how it appears, instead of thinking, what is the actual challenge that I'm solving? If any employee really asked, what is the problem we're solving? What is the biggest problem we're solving? And they came and brainstormed 3, 4, 5, 10 different potential responses and say, these three are the most likely to work. And you bring those three to your leader. Do you not think that shows a lot more initiative than just saying, we've got this problem and this problem and this problem? What's the leader going to do? Say, do you have solutions to these already? Are you thinking about those solutions already? If you haven't thought of a solution, why are you bringing me just problems? Because it's not the leader's job to solve the problem. The leader's job is to equip. not to counsel saying, oh, I'm so sorry that you have these problems. We actually are praying as entrepreneurs and as intrapreneurs, people that are in an organization trying to make it better. We're praying for bigger and bigger problems. We actively are searching for larger problems, because if we solve more valuable problems, we can make deeper withdrawals. We can make more money. You solve more valuable problems, you solve world problems that can pay you a lot more. So if you think about storytelling in that way, what are the ways that not just is this being introduced, but have I thought all the way through that problem and come up with my own solutions? That's one of the easiest ways as a leader to empower your troops, if you will, and to give them the autonomy to work as hard as you can. Because one of the things about business ownership in comparison to being like a solopreneur, if you are the one solving all of the issues, there's only so much time in the day. As a leader, you have to be willing to leverage. And that's not a bad term. I mean, sometimes you hear leverage like, oh, that's negative. No, we want to leverage people's strengths. We want them to have their role. We want them to feel comfortable and to expand into that role and to grow. But if you are not good at one element of your business, hire it out. If you're awful at bookkeeping, which I feel like I'm one of those guys, find someone that is great at it and they love it, and that's their superpower, and you hire those people that accentuate the weaknesses that you have because that's their strengths. And you build the entire organization up. So I kind of over-delivered on that question too, but there you go, Alex. There's a little bit of a leadership concept for you.
Hey, you're fine. Hey, like I said, I'm learning. So I'm just taking it all in. I'm like,
Love
okay,
it.
because me running businesses myself, running the podcast. I'm like, okay, let me put that. Let me store that in here. Let me store that in here. So, yeah. So, can you discuss the importance of narrative structure in business storytelling?
Narrative structure. All right. When you think about setting your context, this is the first step that is so important. You want to make sure that people know what is the framework that you're working from. In a business context, that is basically qualifying who you're speaking to. Why are you speaking to them? What is the sandbox that you're playing in? As soon as you have that context, then you will start to expand what the conflict is. Now there's an inciting incident saying, oh, this is what the problem is. As you articulate that conflict or the problem, you will expand it and let people see, feel, hear, touch, interact with it, and let them see, oh, this is a problem. This is the problem that I want to solve. And then as you expand that problem, that's called expanding the conflict, eventually that conflict will need to be resolved. And you think about narrative structure in this way. If you just introduce the conflict and then solve it immediately, it's kind of a boring story, right? There wasn't much rising action. So a lot of times you will explore some of the negative pitfalls, or some of the things that have at least gotten you some progress towards solving that, but didn't quite solve it yet. So in your story, think about the way that you went about solving that issue. Maybe let's step into my story for a moment, if that's all right.
Yep.
I set the context. I was a teacher, and a real estate investor is what I wanted to be. I didn't know how to do it. Okay, I was a teacher. I was in this little box, basically my classroom, and thinking, how do I create more financial flexibility? What is that like? Started reading books. The books took me down and increased my mindset, and they gave me a little bit of ideas, but not any tactical, practical ideas enough that I could do anything with it. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of a failure, but it got me one step closer. And then you look at connecting with another community like Renatus. This is where I found my community. I grew by interacting with all of these amazing investors that were already doing it. I started learning. I did my very first fix and flip, and I realized that was really hard. I do not like doing that, but I do like investing in real estate. So even though I made some money on that, and my results aren't typical, but I made some money, made $22,500. Like, yes, I made it. But that was not fun. I did not like doing fix and flips. What's the next step for me? Go back to the classes and you see, oh, short-term rentals. That sounds like something I would be good at. You study it up and you start implementing. You're surrounding yourself with all the people that also wanted to do short-term rentals, that are also actively doing it. I had my friend Troy and Debbie Rice. They've done 20 plus short-term rentals. They're amazing examples of what's possible when you don't just think about getting one unit of production, but thinking, how do I take this and get another unit, and then take those profits and get another unit and roll it into more and more profits. I was like, oh, I want to do it like them. So I started getting these short-term rentals. I got my first one in 2019 and it went pretty well. And I was like, well, if I could do one, I wonder if I could do two. The next year I got another one. I was like, well, this is great. And then a few months later, I got another one. I was like, this is awesome. I can do this. And eventually I got up to 12 and I paired off last year 3 of them. But you think about the progress that you make. You're like, yes, I climbed that mountain. What does the vista look like? And sometimes when you hit the top of one mountain, you see that there are more mountains. And you're like, that's my next one. So I got to the top of that short-term rental mountain and I was like, this is great. What's next? When you ask yourself what's next, you can say, is the mountain that I'm on right now all that I ever want to be? Or is there something more? And then you can go to that next step. So the podcast was my next step. I started climbing that mountain and figuring out, where do I go? How do I make this work? And started connecting with more people. And you build it up and you get to the top of that mountain. And then you're like, now what's next? Every time you share a success story, you need to have that conflict. And a lot of times there will be those moments of takeaway, right? Those moments where you felt like everything fell out. Everything was destructive. It was frustrating. But being able to share your story in a way that lets you recognize those tiny wins and the tiny losses on your path to the top of the mountain. And then you can ride back off into the sunset. So in French, there's an expression, dénouement, which is the falling action. After you've reached the top of that mountain, what is it like sharing it with other people? Are you going to just keep all that knowledge to yourself, or are you going to share it with other people? Are you asking others to come with you next time? All of these narrative structures that I learned in theater, that I learned in my acting career, they fit into story with business. So where were you before? What took you to where you are now? And then what's happened since? If you can simplify it, story, point, solution is another way. So there's multiple frameworks to do this. But if you tell your story and then you highlight your point, and you share your solution, I learned this from Woody Woodward. Those 3 ideas allow you to share a very impactful, simple story. If you want a deeper framework, I've got another one. But the more you understand storytelling and employ these different frameworks, the easier it is to connect with somebody and to ask someone, how does that apply to me? Because if you're telling a great story, people can see themselves as the hero of that story. If your story isn't something that is relatable, doesn't seem like something that's possible, you're just talking to yourself. Hope that helped.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything else that you would like to touch on before we wrap things up?
Sure. If you've wondered, what is it like to identify that challenge with such detail that you understand it better than your guest or better than the people that you serve, that's what I want to have a conversation with you about. Because if you understand who you serve and they understand that you hear them, you understand them, you recognize what they're passionate about, that is one of the things that storytelling and unlocking your storytelling skills will help you do. when you're thinking about marketing in any business, literally every business needs marketing. If you can tap into that story, not just your own story, but the story of your customer, the pains that they've had, the bruises that they've felt, the nicks and the scars, as you tap into those challenges that they have, and you're willing to actually go there, willing to say, what if it was possible that this was no longer your experience? Could that story be mine? You get them to wonder and imagine that, the sale's almost over. You created that relationship. And then it's just your job to do what you said you'll do when you said you'll do it. That's it. You want a good customer journey? Say what you're going to do and then do it when you said you're going to do it.
Right.
It's literally that simple. So if you haven't connected with me before, feel free to look up the Leveling Up podcast. Continue to follow Alex. He's a stud. So grateful to be on today. And as I always say on my podcast, God bless. And I hope that you continue to level up your life every single day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I hate we really couldn't get into some of the other stuff that we wanted to, but there's always a part 2 to be done. So
absolutely, ask me
so
back, my friend.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll definitely be having you back on because I still got more questions, and then but it's just some of the other stuff you talked on. I'm like, made me think, and then I'm like, yeah, we gotta have you back for another episode. But definitely, everybody that's watching, you guys go into the show notes for the audio version and the description for the video version. Go support him any way possible. Follow him on social media. Check out his podcast. Go support. Go comment on his videos. Make sure you let him know that Alex sent you. We need, us as podcasters, we deal with a lot. It's a lot of hard work. So if we don't get the support we would like to see, then it's kind of discouraging. So you guys go support him and make sure that you drop some comments, drop some likes. Make sure you share the videos as well. Share them to social media and your friends or family that you think may be interested in it also. But once again, thank you again for being a guest on the episode today.
My pleasure.
And then everybody else is watching. You guys have just watched another episode of All In Now with Alex, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.